Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Word Warm-Ups Live. It's part of our Read Live program suite available on online, and it's a great way to help your struggling readers as well as beginning readers. So let's get started. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to start by looking at why Word Warm-Ups Live works. Next, we'll walk through a demo of how it works, which are the steps for completing the different types of exercise. We'll look at how to assess students and make decisions about matching their needs to our interventions. And finally, we'll talk about how we can use Word Warm-Ups Live and our other interventions to meet our students' various needs. When you purchase a student license for Read Live, they get access to all 4 of the programs that are included in that suite. So today we're going to be focusing on Word Warm-Ups Live, which looks at decoding skills. It focuses on building students' automaticity in decoding. You probably have students who also need support in fluency in addition to phonics. In that situation, the Read Naturally Live phonics series is another option. And we'll talk in a minute about how to determine which of those 2 options is best for your students. Here's a table that compares the 4 programs in the suite. First of all, Read Naturally Live is our flagship fluency intervention, and it also supports vocabulary, comprehension, and phonics development. Word Warm-Ups Live, as I said, is our separate phonics intervention. We have students who work in Word Warm-Ups Live for phonics, and then it can be paired with Read Naturally Live for fluency support, especially for older students. We also have 1 Minute Reader Live, and this is our structured independent reading program that offers reading practice for any student. It has levels from early 1st grade all the way up through mid 5th grade. So students who are already working in Read Naturally Live or Word Warm-Ups Live can also work in 1 Minute Reader Live for additional independent practice. And now we have Read Naturally Live Espanol. And this is a program presented entirely in Spanish. It has the same content as Read Naturally Live. It can be used to build Spanish reading fluency for native Spanish speakers, or to support Spanish reading development for any student learning Spanish. And we have dual language classrooms in the US that use Read Naturally Live Espanol and Read Naturally Live together for their Spanish and English language learners. Today, we're focusing on Word Warm-Ups Live. So let's talk about why Word Warm-Ups Live works. We know that students who can't decode words accurately and automatically are not going to be fluent readers. So Read Naturally developed 3 levels of Word Warm-Ups Live to reinforce those important phonemic awareness and phonics skills. It also helps develop mastery and automaticity in decoding, and it supports fluency development. Let's talk for a minute about why decoding skills are so important. We know that decodable words are those words that can be sounded out because they have regular spelling patterns. What percentage of English words are actually decodable? It might be more than you think. About 50% of words in English have regular spelling patterns. That means that each sound in the word matches the letter or letters that represent that sound, like the examples here: black, hot, and plain. Another 37% of words in English have just one error if you try to decode them. And usually that error is going to show up in decoding a short vowel sound or a vowel sound. For example, the word temperature. It's almost decodable. A student just needs to learn that the vowel A in the 3rd syllable says the schwa sound, So research clearly shows the value of phonics instruction when you think that 50% of words are decodable and another 37% are very close. That means the remaining 13% must be learned by memory as irregular words like the word ocean. Most phonics programs teach students to decode accurately, but learning those skills doesn't guarantee that students are able to decode words automatically. And we know that automaticity is very important because in order to become fluent readers, that means at a certain rate with expression, students need to learn to decode unknown words accurately and automatically. Because students who are using all of their mental energy to sound out individual words aren't able to focus on the meaning of what they're reading, and that results in poor comprehension. Research actually shows that students who haven't developed automaticity by the beginning of second grade are at risk for reading failure, and we see those students in our classrooms every day. Word Warm-Ups Live combines these three strategies, teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring, to teach and reinforce phonics skills so our students can become more proficient at decoding unfamiliar words. Word Warm-Ups Live is a mostly independent program. It provides that all-important systematic instruction in the most common phonics patterns, presented in a series of short, carefully sequenced steps. We have word list exercises that give our students plenty of decoding practice. Here's an example right here. And along with reading the words, the student hears an audio narrator pronouncing those words. We also have spelling activities that deepen the student's mastery of reading and spelling, that decoding and encoding. And we have story exercises that give students practice in decoding words with featured phonics patterns in connected text. We also have the progress monitoring component of the Read Naturally strategy in the form of graphs that populate after a student reads a word list. It shows how many words they got correct on that list. And that's a great incentive and motivator for our students. Word Warm-Ups Live is in 3 levels, starting with level 1. Level 1 starts out reviewing letter names and sounds, and then it goes on to teach early phonics skills using one-syllable words. And the skills in level 1 correlate with the phonics curriculum that's usually taught in first and early second grade. There's a copy of the scope and sequence for Word Warm-Ups Live in your handout on pages 6 and 7. Next is level 2. Level 2 focuses on compound words and one-syllable words combined with prefixes and or suffixes. And these skills correlate with the phonics curriculum usually taught in second grade. Level 3 focuses on multisyllabic words, including open and closed syllables and connectors. And this is especially helpful for older students who struggle to decode longer words that they might come across in science or social studies. All right, let's take a look at using assessments to make placement decisions in Word Warm-Ups Live. We know that many students who struggle with reading need support in fluency. Some of those students need support in fluency and phonics, and some need support in just phonics. We're going to look at a couple of examples. First, let's talk about Marcy. Marcy's a first grader. She meets the fluency benchmark goals for first grade, but she needs additional phonics intervention. Marcy's good at decoding short vowel words, but she struggles with some other phonics skills, and her teacher estimates that she reads below a third grade level. So, based on the information the teacher has, she decides to administer the Word Warm-Ups Live phonics assessment. The results from this assessment will help the teacher identify Marcy's earliest phonics need. It will also help place her in the appropriate section of Word Warm-Ups Live. Remember, our students who need intervention need to be placed appropriately so that they're working on targeted skills. The assessment will also help Marcy's teacher decide if she needs to be placed in the Read Naturally Live phonics series, if that would be a better fit for her. Let's take a look at the phonics assessment. It's available through the Read Live staff module, which I'll show you later on. It's also available on our website. But just real quick, I'm going to click into this document and show you the different parts of it. There we go. So you can see here, there's a clickable table of contents. And it walks you through which program is right for your student based on their fluency level and their phonics ability. It tells you how to prepare for the assessment. It gives you a script to read to the student as they're taking it and directions for how to score the assessment. And then here's the scoring worksheet for you to use. And it's also got worksheets for the student to read off of. There's also a webinar available about placing students in Word Warm-Ups Live. And we're going to put this link in the chat for you. This goes into a lot more detail about placement, which is so important for our students. So like I said, the phonics assessment is available through the Read Live staff module, and it's available on our website. This is the scoring worksheet with Marcy's results. From recent classroom work, Marcy's teacher decided that she was solid on those short vowel CBC words. So she started testing her in level 1, section C, which is long vowels with silent E. And you can see over here, Marcy only made one error on this section. So since that was the case, the teacher decided to go ahead and continue testing her in section D, long vowels. In section D, Marcy made 3 errors. So the teacher stopped testing and looked at the directions. There are 2 recommendations here. One option is to place Marcy in level 1, section D, or to use the Read Naturally Live testing level 1.5 to see if that would be a better fit for her. Since Marcy is already at benchmark level in fluency, her teacher decided she wants her to work on phonics in Word Warm-Ups Live. So here's her placement information. Here's another example. Evan is a 5th grader. He needs fluency and phonics support. He could work in the phonics series of Read Naturally Live, but only if his reading level is below 3rd grade. So the teacher's going to test his fluency level first. Here are his results on the Read Naturally Live placement test. He read 70 words correct per minute at level 3.5. So there are 2 options for placement: the sequenced series level 3.5 or the idiom series, also level 3.5. There aren't any recommendations here for the phonics series because he reads above a 3rd grade level. So Evan's teacher decides she'll place him in the sequence series level 3.5 to work on fluency and comprehension. Here's a chart that explains the different levels of Read Naturally Live and how it correlates to different phonics content. The phonics series gives phonics instruction and it builds fluency. But remember, it's only an option for students who read at or below a 3rd grade level. Each level in the phonics series focuses on specific phonics skills. So if a student's earliest phonics need matches the student's Read Naturally Live reading level, they could work on fluency and phonics together in the phonics series. But since Evan is at that level 3.5, you can see there's no phonics level that would be appropriate for him. So we're going to go ahead and test him in the Word Warm-Ups Live phonics assessment because he needs support in phonics and he reads above a 3rd grade level. So here's the phonics assessment for Evan. And we're going to start with level 1, section G, vowels and the consonant R. Fast forward, here are Evan's responses. And because he made 3 errors in this section, we're going to place him in Word Warm-Ups Live, Level 1, Section G, so that he can work on vowels and the consonant R. So here's his placement. He'll start in the phonics in Word Warm-Ups Live, Level 1, Section G. And for fluency, he'll work in Read Naturally Live, Level 3.5. Now remember, Evan's a 5th grader, so there can be some scheduling challenges when you have students that are working in 2 programs, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Here's a helpful checklist for you, and it's also on page 46 in your handout. These are all the steps you'll go through when you're doing the phonics assessment with a student. It's really helpful to print this out, especially when you're just getting started with the assessment. You'll feel much more confident in using the assessment if you have these simplified instructions right in front of you. So you could print this out along with the assessment and have it all together when you're looking at your students' abilities. All right, let's talk about how Word Warm-Ups Live works. We've already seen the scope and sequence for the program, and so we know that it's systematically organized, starting with 1-syllable words and moving on to 2-syllable words. There are 9 sections in Word Warm-Ups Live Level 1 with a total of 69 exercises. And the content here is going to start off, like I said, with letter sounds and short vowels, and then move on to cover long vowels, digraphs, blends, and other consonant and vowel sounds. Level 2 has 8 sections with 68 exercises, and it's going to focus on 2-syllable words, starting with compound words and a review of skills taught in Level 1, then move on to 1-syllable words with prefixes and suffixes, and 2-syllable words with open and closed syllables. Here's the scope and sequence for Level 3. And Level 3 has 7 sections with 48 exercises focusing on multisyllabic words. This level is so helpful for older students who are struggling with decoding longer words that they might encounter in science and social studies texts. Each level of Word Warm-Ups Live, as I said, is broken into sections to address specific skills, making it easier for you to assign particular sections to your students. There are 5 types of student exercises in each section. Each section is going to start with an introduction step that introduces students to the featured phonics pattern in that section. Next are going to be word list lessons, giving students the opportunity to practice decoding words with a featured phonics pattern. Next, at the end of all those word list exercises, students are going to do a review exercise that includes previously taught words. Each section has its own story exercise that gives students a chance to read connected text with words that have the featured phonics pattern. And the story exercise is customizable for your students. There's an easier story version and a more challenging story version. And finally, our challenge exercises are word list exercises that have more challenging words than the regular word list exercises. Words they haven't seen before, but that still have that same phonics pattern. So they get an additional chance to practice new words. After students complete the introduction exercise, they'll move on to the word list exercise, and that has several steps as well. You can see the progress bar at the top of the screen that allows students to see where they are in the steps, starting with look, listen, and respond. Next, they're going to do a decode and read along step, and that's optional. We'll look at that in a minute. Students will practice the word list and then practice spelling words with the featured phonics pattern. And finally, they'll read the word list words for the teacher in the past step. And we'll look at these steps in more detail later. Here's an example of a story exercise where students can experience phonics patterns they've already learned in the context of a larger text. Story exercises in Word Warm-Ups Live aren't necessarily structured to increase a student's reading fluency. We want to increase their automaticity and their accuracy in decoding. When a student starts a story exercise, they listen to an audio recording of the story and read along quietly aloud so that they can hear the pronunciation of those words correctly modeled and practice reading them. Next, they do the practice step, which lets the student read the text aloud independently. We don't time the practice steps in Word Warm-Ups Live. Students need to read the story carefully because they're going to answer a quiz question about the story in the quiz step. And finally, in the pass step, students will read the story aloud for their teacher so that the teacher can be sure that they're understanding the phonics pattern and can read it accurately. Here's a poster that's a helpful guide for you and your students in following the steps of Word Warm-Ups Live. And you can see the different steps for each type of exercise. And there's a copy of this in your handout on page 22. Here's another checklist for you. Always love a good checklist. This one is great for when you're setting your students up in Word Warm-Ups Live. You want to make sure that they have access to Read Live, and then you go ahead and add your students. Again, this might be helpful for you to print out so that you have it. It's on page 47 in your handout. All right, we're going to go ahead and hop into the program now. I'm going to start off by logging in as a staff member and show you some of the features of the staff member module of Read Live. I encourage you, if you are new to Read Live, to start off with the orientation and resources page. First of all, you've got step-by-step directions on how to get your students into the program, how to place them, etc. And you also have a link to the Read Live help page, which is very helpful, especially for new users. The Read Live help page has videos. It also has the Read Live user guide, which has information about all 4 of our programs in a quick, easy to find format. We also have here a free online course on Word Warm-Ups Live that goes into a lot more depth about the program and teacher strategies for using the program. There's a recording of this webinar if you need to go back and review it or want to share it with a colleague. And there are also some student training videos here that are very helpful when you've got students new to the program. You could assign your students to watch the first video in this series and then go into the program and work through those steps. Back on the Read Live help page, I don't know if you noticed, there's a link to the steps poster as well. And there are also several different job aids, including a fidelity checklist. This is great for making sure you're using the program as it should be used. And it walks you through what you should see when you're working with your students and what kinds of questions you need to be asking yourself to make sure that you're using the program correctly. And I also want to point out there's a link here for the phonics assessment. There's a welcome letter that you can print off or email to parents. The scope and sequence of here is here. And there's also examples of how the sounds should sound, especially for those of us that aren't trained in teaching phonics. This is very helpful. All right, so back to the staff module. I want to show you on the student activity page the things you can do for your students here. When you click on this button in front of the student's name, you can see the different applications that they're enrolled in. I know that I want to have Rob work in Word Warm-Ups Live. So I am going to click on the box in front of his name. I'm going to go to application specific actions. I'm going to come down here to Word Warm-Ups Live. And I can add the application for him right here. It's going to make sure that I really want to do that. I'm going to say yes. You can also add the application for multiple students at once just by clicking in the box before each of their names. Notice that now that I've added Word Warm-Ups Live for Rob, he's got an automatic default assignment. So if I know that he needs to work in a different level or a different section, I can change his assignment by clicking on that change icon. And here's where I can adjust his assignment. So let's say he needs to work on vowels in the consonant R. The computer automatically assigns him a word list goal of 40 words correct per minute. And we recommend that you go ahead and keep that for the student, especially at the beginning. Notice here, you can also turn exercises off for this student. So if I know that he just needs to work on one vowel and R with silent E, I can turn off the other exercises so that he's not spending time working on skills that he already has mastered. Notice here, you can print the phonics assessment from this window as well. So I save and close to save his assignment. And then there it is right there for us. All right, now we're going to log in as a student, and I'm going to show you the different steps of the programs. Let me get out of Rob here and hop into Evan. All right, so here's Evan. This might look familiar to you if you've got students already working in some of our other programs. I'm going to click on the Word Warm-Ups Live tile to select an exercise.
Select the next exercise.
All right. So here we are at the word list exercise points. You can see that he's already completed 2 word list exercises and he's on the 3rd one. I turned these off just for the sake of our demo today. Normally, I wouldn't turn off the review exercise so that he got some additional practice. So we're going to start with the bird exercise, which is the IR section.
Let's learn to read words with the letters IR, ER, or UR.
Click the word under each picture for a lesson.
Notice here, you can also play the directions again. And once they've played through one time, you can turn them off altogether. Notice there is the progress bar across the top that shows what step he's on and what he still has to do. So we're just going to listen to some of the instruction on these words.
Look at the word bird. Bird has one vowel, I. The I is followed by the consonant R. Together, these 2 letters say one sound, Listen for the sound in this word as you quietly read it with me. Ready? Bird. Look at the word fern. Fern has one vowel, E. The E is followed by the consonant R. Together, these 2 letters say one sound, Listen for the sound in this word as you quietly read it with me. Ready? Fern. Look at the word curl. Curl has one vowel, U. The U is followed by the consonant R. Together, these 2 letters say one sound, Listen for the sound in this word as you quietly read it with me. Ready? Curl.
The student
Look
is,
at the words. All the words follow the same pattern. Each word has one vowel followed by the consonant R. Together in each word, the vowel and R says
Click each button. Quietly sound out and then read the word with the audio.
Irk, her, verb, earn, hurl.
Click a word again or click next to continue. click Next to continue, or click Start Read Along. Then decode and read along with the audio.
So the decode and read along step is optional. You can turn it off in the teacher menu. Let me show you those options in the teacher menu. If you go down here to change story options, it's going to give you different options for each step in Word Warm-Ups Live. So you can turn off this decode and read along step. You can adjust the number of times a student needs to do that step. You can also adjust the number of times they need to do the practice step and the duration of the practice step. You can make it a 1-minute timing or a whole list timing. You can turn the spelling step off, which we don't recommend because it's important for students to encode words as well as decoding them. And you can also adjust the story version from easier to more challenging. I'm going to put it on easier for us for today. You can adjust the number of times the student needs to read along with the story and the number of times they need to do the practice step. So make sure that you save these options once you've changed them. And we can go back
Next to continue
to the decode and read along step.
Click Start Read Along. Then decode and read along with the audio.
Irk, sir, dirt.
Click Next to continue,
So-
or click Start Read Along. Then decode and read along with the audio.
The narrator is going to read each word and decode it sound by sound, going down the columns. And then she's going to read the words as a whole going across. So the student can read along with her, especially for those students that need that little bit of additional support.
Click any words you don't know and read them with the audio. When you're ready, click Start Timing, read down the columns, and click Finish. Then read across the rows and click Finished again.
Notice down here in the lower left-hand corner, they can click on that button to hear the instructions again in case they didn't understand it. So when I click on Start Timing, the student's going to begin reading the words down the columns. Remember, they can click and hear the word pronounced for them. When they finish reading down the columns, then they click the Finished button, and the direction, the reading guide is changed so that they read across each row. And notice that reading across each row is a little bit more challenging because the words aren't in the same word families. So this is that repeated reading component of the Read Naturally strategy. We're making sure the student can apply the featured sounds or phonics patterns to master these words. It also allows the student to monitor their progress. And this is how we motivate them to improve. When the student, when this timer sounds, the student's going to click on the last word they read, and then that score is going to appear in the box. And we're going to see that indicated on a graph.
You've reached your goal. You've finished all your practices. Click Start Timing to practice again, or click Next to continue. Click the speaker icon to hear a spelling word. Then type the word and click Show Me to see the correct spelling.
Dirt. The dirt road is very narrow. Dirt.
So the student's going to type the word.
Compare your word to the correct answer. Fix your word if it doesn't match. Then click Check.
They get immediate feedback on whether they're right or not, and they can visually compare what they typed to the actual spelling of the word. And then
Next to continue.
They also get feedback on whether they were correct or not.
A cheetah can run over 50 miles per hour. Purr. Term. length of a president's term is 4 years. Term.
Okay, so I'm going to look at that. I'm going to compare it, and then I'm going to go back and correct it. The computer's keeping track of the words I got correct the first time.
Click Next to continue.
Burn. Burn. I hope he does not burn the toast. Burn. Hurt. Hurt. The girl fell down and hurt her knee. Hurt.
Click Next to continue. Play this game while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points. If there's a speaker icon, click it. Click any word or picture you don't know to hear what it is.
Notice the screen here is red at the top and the bottom. That gives the teacher a notice that the student is ready to work with them. They can hear a word pronounced by clicking on the speaker icon.
Burr.
And then choose an answer.
Click Next to try another question.
Okay, when the teacher's ready to work with the student, they're going to click on Conduct Pass Activities and enter in their password. Oops, hopefully the right password. There we go. And then the teacher's going to listen to the student read the word list, starting going down the columns and then going across the rows. So the student's going to read the exact same list that they already read during the practice word list step. In order to pass, the student needs to be able to read all the words down the columns and across the rows at their goal rate, which for this student is 40 words correct per minute, with 3 or fewer errors. When the student is finished reading, the teacher will enter the number of errors that the student made. So this is a really good opportunity for the teacher to see the different spelling patterns that maybe the student is still struggling with. You can also print the exercises from the Read Live staff module and send them home if you want to print out the word list and send it home with the student so that they can practice reading it at home with their parents. That's a great idea too.
When the bell sounded. Wait for your teacher to enter the number missed. Then click Next to continue.
All right, so they get to see their progress on the graph, which they love to see. And then we get to the pass review work step. This is where I'm going to review the students' work on this particular exercise. You can also check out how they're doing on other exercises by comparing their progress on their word list and on the spelling activities. And you can print those graphs if you need to. So I can see here the words that he missed on that first attempt on the spelling as well. And then for the remedial actions, if I want him to go back and redo his spelling activity, I can certainly have him do that. I can also have him practice the word list some more or do another decode and read along. Or I can choose to pass him with the current scores. He only missed 1 on the spelling. I may have him review that or make a flashcard, but I'm going to go ahead and pass him on with those current scores.
Congratulations. You passed this exercise. Click Done to finish.
And then he's going to get this congratulations screen with some colorful badges and ribbons for him.
Please select the next exercise.
Let's take a look at a story exercise. This is where the student's going to read a passage.
Look at the story. Notice many words in this story have 1 or 2 vowels and the consonant R.
Click Start Read Along and read along as the story is read to you.
You can see that there are fewer words in this story. There are going to be 90 words or less in the easier story. We're going to have the read along portion where students can read words with those featured phonics patterns in connected text. They're going to have an audio narrator reading with them. So they've got that teacher model of a fluent reader.
Popcorn is one sort of corn. First, farmers plant kernels in dirt.
Click Start Read Along to read along again.
You can also hear that in the read along step, the narrator is going to be reading a little bit slower to help the student really learn the words in connected text. And then once they're finished with that, they go ahead and they read the story by themselves. They do a quick quiz activity. There's a fantastic activity. And then they read the story out loud for their teacher. We're going to talk next about how Word Warm-Ups Live can help you meet your individual student needs. Because as interventionists and as regular classroom teachers, that's what we're really focused on. So let's talk about multi-tiered systems of supports. Word Warm-Ups Live is a great way to meet the needs of your students served in Tier 1, 2, or 3, and students who are served by special education services. For Tier 1 students, they can work in Word Warm-Ups Live for about 10 minutes a day to reinforce the phonics skills they're learning in core instruction. This will help them build automaticity and decoding and practice spelling words with the featured patterns. For Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention students, we recommend working in Word Warm-Ups Live for 20 to 30 minutes a day. They're still going to be practicing those phonics skills that they need to master. They'll also be building automaticity and learning to spell words. And for special education students, you can assign specific lessons that are targeted to meet their short-term and long-term IEP goals. For example, if you have an older student, they might only need to work on a few long vowel patterns, for example. You can assign those specific exercises using that story options screen, and then the student will move more quickly through those phonics skills that have been identified as areas of challenge for them. And Word Warm-Ups Live is great for students with reading disabilities or dyslexia because of our systematic explicit instruction. We have a continuum of phonics skills in that scope and sequence, and a specific set of very structured steps. As they move through those steps, the content becomes more challenging for them. If you have students working in Word Warm-Ups Live and Read Naturally Live, there are a couple of different options for you. First of all, you could have your students in Word Warm-Ups Live work in that for 10 minutes at the beginning of your intervention session as a kind of a warm-up. And then they can switch to Read Naturally Live for the rest of the time. Or you could alternate between the two programs by having the student complete an exercise in Word Warm-Ups Live. As you just saw, the exercises are not very lengthy. Then they can go to Read Naturally Live and complete the steps there, or finish up the story they were working on yesterday, and then switch back. Kids really like the variety of doing both programs and bouncing back and forth. I also want to show you the different reports we have available in Word Warm-Ups Live. So if you want to print off reports for a student, you're going to go to the Read Live program homepage. You're going to log in as a staff member. Here we go. Log in. And you're going to go to your homepage and click on the reports tile. You're going to click on Word Warm-Ups Live Reports, Student Level Reports, and you'll be able to choose one student or several students to generate those reports. And click on the blue button. And then you'll see the printout of the report. You can print it as a PDF, you can save it. This report shows how a student did on each exercise that they have been working on. So you can see specifically how they did on their timing, how many practices they needed to pass it, what their spelling score was on their first try. And this is really helpful for talking with parents, for talking with other teachers, for doing IEP goals. It's a very helpful report. The word list report, as I showed you briefly earlier, shows the words a student, how many words a student read in a minute for each of these exercises and how many errors they made. Then there's the spelling graph where you can see how they're doing with spelling, and you can see exactly which words they missed on each exercise. And then finally, the exercise details report tells us for one exercise when they started it, what their past results were, and also what their practice word list score was. So if you just want to see how they did on one specific exercise, this is a great report to use. We already looked at the teacher menu that's built into the student module of the program. You have all these different options. You can print exercises for your student to take home. You can also print awards for the student. You can reassign any exercises that you think they need to do again. And when you click on change exercise options, as we looked at earlier, here are all the opportunities for that. So today we've talked about a lot with Word Warm-Ups Live. We've looked at why it works, how to make assessment and instructional decisions. We've talked about how it works with a live demo. And then we talked about how you can use Word Warm-Ups Live to meet the needs of your students. So again, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and please let us know if you have any questions.